Hello, everybody. I want to talk for a minute about FTX. So, forgive my background. I'm still in my temporary office as I wait to move to my new office, which will be much cooler looking. But there's so much going on with FTX in the last 24 hours that I wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about what this potentially means for anybody invested in crypto and digital assets. So, there's always something kind of shady to me about Sam Bankman-Fried, simply because I guess I've been in the internet technology space for a long time, and blockchain reminds me a lot of that. And you generally don't become an overnight success out of nowhere unless you had the right people behind you backing you. Honestly, it's not that different than like even the movie industry or Hollywood. Generally, you have to kind of work hard, pay your dues, learn how it works, fail a couple times before you become successful. And Sam Bankman-Fried launched this exchange, and it felt like overnight he was like a billionaire. That's just not really how it works. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. It just was a flag to me that this is something strange. Then you have this other thing, and I don't mean this to sound like mean or superficial, but he's not a very charismatic, attractive, or even articulate guy. He's kind of bumbling, sort of nerdy. And nothing that he's really said actually even indicated to me that he's really smart. So he's not like this brainiac geek who is just socially awkward, but is so smart he's going to revolutionize the world. I haven't watched tons of his speeches, but I've watched enough of his public appearances that there's never really been anything terribly impressive. So it's like, how did you get to be this overnight success when your competition just beats you in all of these areas that generally make it harder to succeed? Then there's also this angle that he's almost like this caricature of an altruist. So we have this kid who doesn't care about money, but he's going to become a billionaire and then give all the money away to all of these social causes that absolutely line up perfectly with World Economic Forum agenda. It's like, wow, all right. And that was sort of set of boxes number 3. Now, if you know anybody personally who's ever built a business that became financially very successful, it's a tremendous sacrifice generally of time and energy and focus. You have to stop doing other things and be really driven to do that. And it often makes you quite protective of your business and protective of your assets, because if you've worked really hard to build something, you don't generally want to waste it or blow it on something dumb. He had none of the qualities that I've seen in an entrepreneur who's really worked hard to build something impressive. I've yet to see something that makes sense to me about how he made his money. He also kind of claims that the seed money for FTX came from arbitrage trades on Bitcoin. If you're not familiar with what that means, is like an arbitrage, I can't even say it. An arbitrage trade is when you're leveraging like a difference in price. So if on one exchange something is $10,000 and another exchange is $10,500, you buy the low place, you sell at the high place, you pocket the difference. You can make money in arbitrage, no doubt about it. But do you become a billionaire overnight, or even do you make hundreds of millions of dollars doing arbitrage trades on Bitcoin in a few short amounts of time? Again, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And he sort of brushes that off like, oh yeah, I just made hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever money he needed to start FTX doing some arbitrage trades. Like that's not hard. That's the other way. So if he didn't make the money with that, where did the money come from? Who's behind him? Then you get into this whole rabbit hole of MIT, and he is connected to Gary Gensler through MIT, and his girlfriend, his other thing. So he puts his geeky girlfriend in charge of his sister hedge fund company, Alameda, and nothing about her shows that she's very savvy or experienced. I did watch a short clip where her financial acumen is not very impressive at all. The idea that she's this young girl in charge of this hedge fund that's making billions of dollars is also ludicrous. And she's connected to Gary Gensler also through her father, who works at MIT. And this was how they got access to politicians like the CFTC. Carolyn Pham met with them. Gary Gensler met several occasions. There's a connection too with Elizabeth Warren. It's just sort of strange too. You'd be this 25-year-old kid, kind of this geeky, awkward kid. Now you get to have meetings with people in Congress that are generally, that access is very guarded. Like if I wanted to go tomorrow and meet with some congressman or senator, it's not that easy to do. Like you got to know people. They have to know it's worth their while. They have to, you don't just get to like send out their booking link on Calendly and book a time with Gary Gensler. Like if you know anything from the XRP case, John Deaton has tried to meet with him on behalf of the 75,000 XRP holders that he represents. And that access is very difficult to get. So how did Sam Bankman-Fried get all this access? It's because he runs this massively successful crypto platform. Well, Gary Gensler doesn't even take crypto seriously. He thinks it's all kind of a security that should be regulated. He's never proved in anything he said to be supportive of the crypto industry at all. And then there is sort of this interesting thing that he set up his company. My understanding is it's based in the Bahamas, offshore. So he set it up outside the U.S. to not have to honor U.S. regulations. But then he gets all this access to U.S. politicians and is being pivotal in writing U.S. legislation. Like, really? Okay. It's kind of weird. And then him sort of throwing around money, buying up failing startups. Again, it's just, that's not how somebody who had to work really hard to build a profitable business would act. You generally would be very strategic about your investments so that you don't lose this money you had to work very hard to make. So he buys Voyager, which, why? Was that something that was necessary to his portfolio? Did it solve a problem that his current business didn't have? Why would you do that? It just kind of looked like he was throwing monopoly money around, which is probably what was happening. He was given money. This is my speculation. He was given money to hire some developers to build an exchange. He was laundering money for some reason. Maybe it was some sort of political contributions or foreign aid type money that was being funneled through FTX to go to different places, and kind of like a tornado cash, like privacy funnel funding hider type thing. Central Exchange can fill that purpose, to be totally honest. And he very likely will be the fall guy who is used as the poster child for why the US crypto industry needs to be regulated. Humans love a scapegoat. They love somebody to be mad at. They love someone to use as an example of why this is not okay. And you have this young kid who probably believed that the people giving him money or giving him access were on his side, and they're going to turn around. This is my guess here. And he will be the sacrificial lamb. He will be sacrificed. Kind of like a Bernie Madoff. People knew what Bernie Madoff was doing. If you're not old enough to remember Bernie Madoff, he was kind of put the label Ponzi scheme on the map for many of us. And he ran a really shady investment hedge fund type thing. Lots of very wealthy people gave him money, and he gave the first group of people some returns because he was taking the later money to pay the older people. And it was definitely a Ponzi. Well, people knew about it. You don't get to run a big Ponzi scheme with zero people having any idea what you're doing. Rumor has it that JP Morgan was aware. He was banking with them, and they knew. Didn't do anything. They didn't care. So who else is going to have known about what SBF was doing? I did see one funny tweet that SBF and FTX were audited by the first auditing firm of the metaverse. Like, that's even a thing yet. And I just think it's almost comical. I'm laughing about it. I'm sorry for people that lost money in FTX. That sucks. I don't know if you'll be getting your money back. Please, if you're watching this and you have any money on a central exchange, please take that money off. There's just no reason to have any of it on a central exchange. Even Coinbase, I have no reason to think Coinbase is going to fail, but a lot of people didn't think that, I mean, I never would have thought Voyager was. I mean, that was one of the first exchanges I was on. I didn't know enough about what they were doing behind the scenes in the same way that we don't really know what Coinbase is doing. I'm not trying to spread FUD and say anything wrong with Coinbase. I don't know that's the case. I just think at this point to leave your crypto on a central exchange is just a totally unnecessary risk. And I don't suggest anyone do that, especially because there's lots of other options. I mean, get a cold wallet, but even if you don't want to do that for some reason, like a trust wallet, at least you control the access to it and the funds. Because here's the thing was when you put your money in a central exchange, it's not really your money at that point. You're giving them the money with the expectation that they'll give it back to you. But what if they go under? They don't have the money to give back to you, because the way banks and exchanges work is they lend that money out to make interest. It's their business model, which is why banks, are insured, because it's understood that banks are going to lend money out. That's their model, is to issue loans, and they, make money off the interest. Well, if the people who they give loans to default, the money's not coming back, which is why banks have insurance, because otherwise, why would you put your money in a bank knowing that if things don't go right, then you won't get your money back? So I don't think that FTX is going to be the end for crypto. I think it's going to be used as a catalyst to usher in regulations. I think the first regulations will be around stablecoins. I've always believed that, and I still believe that to be true. I also think that blockchain and DLT technology is here to stay, but the focus will probably go over to more enterprise type businesses that use it for things like the supply chain, maybe even stock and bond trading and settling of payments. I think this particular situation will probably rattle the retail investors and maybe even make it more difficult for retail investors to get in. I'm not sure. I really hope that they don't lock out everybody who's not an accredited investor. I think that would be really sad and sucky. Hopefully that won't happen. Could. But I don't think that crypto is over. I'm starting to really dislike that word. I prefer just to refer to all of this as blockchain technology. I think blockchain technology has incredible uses and applications, and those will continue to gain adoption. But in the short term, I think this retail investing of buying crypto with the expectation of making lots of money, I think that's it's not the season for that to be working out. I think that eventually Wall Street will take over a lot of the trading platforms, and that will be justified with things like SBF. Does he go to jail? I don't know. Rumor has it he's gone to Argentina to flee for protection. Maybe he didn't have enough of that Vitalik protection money. I thought he did. He gave more to the Democratic Party than almost anybody but I think George Soros. So I guess he didn't give quite enough. We'll see if anybody else takes the fall for this. I would love to see Gary Gensler have to answer for his connections. We'll see if MIT takes any heat for any of this stuff. I'm always kind of curious how some of these technical schools, MIT and Caltech and that kind of thing, their connections to groups like DARPA and the military. We'll see if any of that type of thing comes out. I'm not saying anything's there, but be interesting. I got to hire smart programmers and engineers from somewhere. Why not invest all your money in a couple of schools that focus on those things? So just saying. All right, that's my update on FTX. I will see you in the next video.